Thank you, Terry, so much for that lovely introduction. I am super excited to be presenting today. I'm very passionate about this topic, but I also know that there are some people in here who are probably a little hungry or a little thirsty. So please feel comfortable. This is a very informal environment. Feel comfortable getting your brunch items, your beverages, and as you are doing that, I'm going to ask a couple of questions just to get us started and allow a few more people to come into the room. The first question that I have for you is, why did you join Toastmasters? Why did you join Toastmasters? For some of you may not be yet a member of Toastmasters. Feel free to share why you're interested in Toastmasters. And you can drop that information either in the chat or you can take yourself off mute and give your response. Why did you join Toastmasters? Perhaps people are all in their kitchens at the moment. I see Gwen said to find her voice. Excellent. Kathy said to improve her public speaking and leadership skills and networking. For Anna, it was leadership development. Any more people? We have Dawn. Dawn said it was to help herself gain experience and reduce her fears around speaking into groups of people. That's a very common reason for why people have joined Toastmasters. In fact, so much so, Debbie even echoes that. So now that we talked about why we joined Toastmasters, I'm going to ask, what do you believe is the purpose of Pathways? If you're not familiar with Pathways, Pathways is Toastmasters International Educational Curriculum. What do you believe is the purpose of Pathways? Tony says it provides structures for fulfillment. Kathy talks about customization for learning. Lillian is another person who's talking about confidence, public speaking, wanting to overcome her anxiety. That probably is one of the top reasons why people join Toastmasters. For Lisette, it's to help learn to be more effective speaker and provide leadership skills in terms of Toastmasters. For Jamie, who sounds like somebody who might be one of my mentees, she said it's to integrate speaking into her career. I see Anne Marie talks about the curriculum allows members to work at their own pace while they're building skill sets. For Dawn, it's about structure. She's echoing Tony that provides a structural framework to teach people how to speak with confidence. Christina's also noting the leadership communication aspects of Pathways. I am going to share a little bit about why I joined Toastmasters and also provide my perspective on what I believe is the purpose of the Pathways curriculum. It has evolved over time, and it's really delves deep into why I joined in the first place. I joined Toastmasters over 15 years ago because I had a co-worker who did not want to attend a meeting alone. She attended the meeting, she wanted to join, she wanted me to join her. And I said, sure, why not? Why can I not be a helpful co-worker? But then as I got into it, I started to realize that there was perhaps some benefits in doing this. I am an auditor by trade, and I have to speak publicly to boards and senior management. And I thought, why not? This could be a way to help me improve my public speaking skills. When I first started into Toastmasters, it was under the old educational curriculum. And if you're a part of the old educational curriculum, you know about those first 10 speeches in the Competent Communication Manual. After I gave my icebreaker speech, I gave a second speech about why auditors ask the questions that they ask. I really could not think about any other topic other than auditing because I was so paralyzed by the potential judgment that I might give a speech on a topic that people may not warm up to. By the time I got to that 10th speech, I was feeling a little bit bolder, a little bit more confident. And I gave a speech that was to persuade people to attend an opera. At that time, I was an amateur opera enthusiast. I went regularly to operas, and I love them. I still love them to this day. I really didn't know how people were going to respond to that speech, but it ended up being one of the most popular speeches I've ever given in Toastmasters. And it was because my passion for the topic really started to come through, and I had really started to apply some of the skill sets that I had learned earlier around how to craft and connect with an audience. That speech was probably what really got me into Toastmasters, being a Toastmasters enthusiast, because when I went into the advanced communication manuals, I was just set ablaze by them. I also learned some of the tips and trade tools that are used to be able to navigate the Toastmasters curriculum. I learned the benefit of joining a second club, which allows you to give more speeches to move more quickly through the educational curriculum. I learned that you can give one speech multiple times if it satisfies the objectives of those projects. So I learned to be much more efficient in being able to craft a speech that met multiple different purposes. And it was great. I actually loved doing a lot of the projects in what was then known as the advanced communication manuals. I learned how to develop a unique selling proposition, or some people might want to, might hear it as the value proposition. I had to sell a product. And for me, my product was to sell a cartoon show that was on Nickelodeon, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Why adults should watch Avatar: The Last Airbender. It was a lot of fun, 10, 15 minutes. I really enjoyed it. And it took me a moment actually to learn how to craft a unique selling proposition. I learned how to develop talking points, which is what a topic I have been discussing with one of my mentees. I learned how to develop talking points because I did the radio show project. In that project, your audience is supposed to turn their backs to you. They can only hear you audibly. And you're interviewed by a person on a topic to simulate a radio talk show format. At that time, I had been recovering from my third foot surgery in 4 years. And so I wanted to talk about good foot care, how to save your feet so that people didn't have the same experiences that I had. But I learned very quickly that if you're going to be on a radio show, you got to have your talking points down. You don't have a lot of time to tell stories and all of the other things that you might do in another environment. I was also one of those few people that enjoyed holding a press conference. That's right, ladies. I held a press conference where I simulated being a publicist for the Women's Tennis Association and was advocating why equal pay was something that was a right and not a latitude for women tennis players. They were fun projects. I loved them. I learned to embrace talking about things that I liked, loved, and illuminated my perspective on things. That being said, Many of those projects were not things that I was ever going to do in my professional life or in my personal life, right? I hope to live a life where I never have to give a press conference about anything. Some other people might have different goals, but my goal is to live a life worthy of not having a press conference over. I like going to poetry jams. I like sitting back in the audience, the ambience, listening to people, having an adult beverage. But I am not going to be that person on the stage reciting a poem. Yet for me to get my educational credit, I had to recite a poem aloud for 12 to 15 minutes. Luckily, I could use my favorite poem, which is the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, but that's not an experience that I'm hoping to simulate again, right? So the old educational curriculum, yeah, it was great in helping you to practice different types of speeches, but did it really satisfy my goals and interests? Don't know. When Pathways was introduced about 5 or 6 years ago, I was looking forward to it. I didn't know much about it, but I approached it the same way that I approached the old educational curriculum. In level 1, I talked about things I liked, loved, and illuminated my perspectives. Kathy mentioned in the chat about my bourbon speech. I gave a speech about the 7 characteristics of what makes a bourbon a bourbon. That was a very popular speech. I love tea. In fact, I am drinking tea now. I am a budding tea connoisseur. I hope to be a complete snob at some point in my life. I gave a speech on how to properly brew a cup of tea, right? They were fun. They were light. Again, I got to practice public speaking, become confident in my public speaking. And then I got to level 2. And holy cow, there was a level 2 project that did not even seem to fit in what I knew about Toastmasters at the time. As I was navigating what to do for this project, I came across a quote from Toastmasters International about why they created Pathways. And this statement has really impacted the way that I view the educational curriculum now. They created Pathways because they wanted to create a customized journey for the members to achieve their goals. And they also want to better help them develop transferable skill sets. The customization was something that really resonated to me. Again, I'm not looking to hold any press conferences. I'm not looking to be the poet at the poetry jam. I really would love to find topics, projects, etc., that benefits me as an auditor. And I was really gravitating to this transferable skill sets because, again, I understand the purpose behind reading a poem out loud. You're working on your vocal variety skills, but that was difficult for me to grasp and how reading a poem aloud was going to help me to be a better communicator at work. And so when I went into level 2, I started to rethink a few things. For my path, I was working in the strategic relationships path. And I had set out as a goal to use that path as a way to help me with my professional development. In level 2, there is a project that is called CrossCultural Understanding. In that project, you are to you're supposed to do an inventory of all of the cultural identities with which you identify. You select a stereotype, and then you give a speech about how that stereotype impacts you. Again, that is very different from any other Toastmasters project that I had encountered prior to that. I was going to take the safe route. I was going to keep it light and fun and talk about the stereotypes of auditors. But when I was working on this project, there was a news item that made national news. There was a congressman who made a racist remark. A congresswoman called him out on the remark, and the congressman retorted saying that he can't possibly be racist because he had a family member who was Black. I started thinking about that incident, looking at the project, and I decided that I was going to be bold. I gave a speech about abandoning the use of the Black friend defense. If you are not familiar with it, the Black friend defense is someone saying, I can't be racist because I have a friend who is Black, right? And in my speech, I talked about how the history of the Black friend defense came about as part of the Civil War and Reconstruction era period. I talked about how it's used in today's environment and how it has many different corollaries. And then I talked about an instance where somebody used the Black friend defense and I was the Black friend and how that impacted me. Ladies, it was without a doubt one of the top experiences that I've ever had in Toastmasters. Because I gave that speech not at She Leads, She Speaks. I gave it at my home club. My home club is a community club, but it has a very different demographic profile. And I wanted to stretch myself on how to give a speech on a topic and be persuasive, but know that the audience may not react to it in a favorable way. And one of the things that I learned from that was the value of being vulnerable. You cannot connect with an audience if you are not vulnerable with them. And that's why it started to resonate with me that my topics talking about what I like, love, and are illuminated by tended to go over well with audiences. If I kept it safe, I was not making that connection. It was when I was being vulnerable that I had the best connection with people and people really were attracted to what I was saying. That project helped me tremendously for level 3. The whole reason why I even got the idea to use strategic relationships as a professional development opportunity was because of the core project in level 3, which was making connections through networking. I was supposed to develop an elevator pitch, attend a networking event, deliver the pitch, and then give a speech about my experiences having done so. I attended 1 networking event. I attended 2 networking events, and I failed spectacularly at both of them. I was at a complete loss. I did not know how I was going to give a speech talking about failure. Like all of the other project speeches I've had, they've been inspirational, they've been fun. How am I going to talk about failing? And if I hadn't done level 2 in the way that I did it, it would not have opened me up to the possibility that perhaps I should give a speech about how I failed at networking. That experience allowed me to delve a little bit more deeply as to why I failed at it. And it's because I did not use the tools in the curriculum that Toastmasters International gave me to develop that unique selling proposition. And I realized I didn't want to use those tools because it was going to be difficult. But at the end of the day, I really didn't have a value proposition about myself to sell to others. So I went to level 4 with a very specific intent. My core project was public relations strategies. And I decided that I wasn't going to develop a public relations strategy for Toastmasters or for an organization or for my workplace. I was going to do it on myself. And so I spent 3 to 4 months developing a professional brand so that I could articulate my value proposition to other people. Incidentally, during this time, I was also looking for a promotion at work, and my boss was hemming and hawing about it, and it was really annoying me quite a bit. And so the 3 to 4 months was very valuable. I completely revamped my resume. I had different content on my LinkedIn profile. I wrote for the first time in my life a biography, and I could easily fill 2 to 3 pages talking about my career and experiences. And that really illuminated the fact that I did not know my worth, as so many other women also experience. And part of the reason why I was not getting the promotion at work is because I could not articulate my value. So there was an opportunity after I finished this to help me articulate my value a little bit more. At that time, 2 years prior, I had an idea to bring all of the resource groups together at work in an effort to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. I thought it was going to be a week-long event. I shared it with the chief diversity officer, and surprisingly, he said no. It took me weeks, if not months, to get over that. I had no idea why in the world he was so against this idea. But eventually he left the organization, and there was a new chief diversity officer who joined us. And I decided that this might be my second opportunity. I brushed the dust off my shoulders. I recrafted the concept, and I pitched it to the new chief diversity officer. And this time she said yes. And in fact, she allowed me to be the leader of this effort that ended up being an organization-wide project. What I thought was going to be week-long became a month-long event that consisted of 19 different sub-events around the theme of intersectionality. I branded the event as Allyship in Action. I had close to 4,000 people to attend. I even had the president to give me shout outs, not only in the closing session remarks, but also in an email that went out to the organization. And because of how high profile that event was, when I went back to my supervisor to articulate my value, he could not deny me my promotion anymore. And I was promoted last year because of the efforts with that particular project and prior projects. This seems like a very long preamble, right, as to answering the question about why I joined Toastmasters and how I perceive the purpose of Pathways. And I've done that intentionally because I feel oftentimes in Toastmasters, there is a huge gap between why people join and Pathways. And many of us do not know how to bridge the gap from why we joined and how to leverage Pathways for our professional and personal interests. And that is the reason why I'm speaking today. That's why I'm here. That's why I volunteered to do that, because I am passionate about it. And especially if you're an older member, someone who was a part of the older educational program, you might still be that person who's trying to check the box, right? The old educational curriculum was very prescriptive and you just moseyed on about your way. Pathways doesn't allow you to do that because as Kathy noted, as I noted from the Toastmasters International system, it is a customizable journey, which means you have to have a goal and you have to have ideas about what it is that you want to accomplish. And today I want to help you to be able to bridge the gap from why you joined and how Pathways can help you to do that. I am going to give you some resources, some very simplified resources that you can use to help you construct that bridge. I'm going to walk you through the approach and how to do so. In fact, that's part of the reason why my preamble has been so long, because you have not realized, but I've given you the approach on how to build the bridge, okay? I'm going to delve into it a little bit more. And then I have a couple of mentees who were extremely gracious and allowed me to share with you their mentoring plans based upon the resources and the approach so that you can see what it looks like and give you another different perspective of how you can leverage Pathways for your goals and interests. Okay. And I believe we will have time, but I want to set it in the back of somebody's head. If you like to volunteer yourself as tribute, I'm willing to do a 5 to 7 minute simulation of what I do with my new mentees as they come on board, which is discover what their goals are, and then use the Pathways curriculum to start brainstorming how the curriculum can actually be applied to their lives. So if there's somebody who's willing to share their goals in front of the group, allow me to talk to you, sort of guide you through the process, raise your hand at that moment. And I am happy to do that, again, as a way for people to audibly hear it, in addition to the visual guides that I will have. As I mentioned earlier, this is a very relaxed, informal session. I'm trying to stop myself, but I tend to ramble on. But please feel free, if you want to take yourself off mute, to ask me a question as I'm speaking. No worries there. If you have any questions, also feel free to drop them into the chat. I'm seeing a lot of smiley faces as I'm looking into the chat right now. But I will monitor the chat for your questions. I believe there's also someone out in the crowd who's also going to alert me if I miss a question or two, to make sure that I'm answering them. And then finally, as I tell my mentees, you cannot give an informational speech. Oh, wow, that looks really good. You cannot give an informational speech without a call to action. Okay, so I have my call to action to the group on how you can take the next steps to build the bridge from why you joined to Pathways. How does that sound? Does that sound good? Does that sound beneficial for everyone? I'm trying to focus, but when I see food, it's difficult. Cool. Sounds like we're a go. So let's begin first with resources, okay? I know we have Toastmasters International website. We have the educational curriculum there at the website, all of that good stuff. But I am going to simplify all of that for you, okay? These are the resources that I use to build out my plans for Pathways. Is what I give to my mentees. Also, I just think it's visually more appetizing than probably what you see at Toastmasters International website. Among these resources, one you should already have, one you already know, And one you may not have that I'm going to give to you. If you're my mentee, you should have this readily available, okay? So here are the 3 resources, and I'm going to begin first with the District 4 Toastmasters website. And I hope that our District 36 district director doesn't mind me doing this, but it is truly the website that I have been using for 10 years to help me figure out what projects are in a manual, or in another case, what projects are in pathways, okay? In front of you, there is hopefully a website. Does everyone see a website in front of them? If so, give me a physical or a virtual thumbs up. Sonia says yes. Thank you so much. So this is the District 4 website. I'm going to drop a link of it into the chat. Oh, thank you so much as well, Anna. This is the website that I use, as I said, to identify what projects are in pathways, okay? When you scroll down, you're going to see a list of paths. If you click on a path, and I'm going to click on engaging humor, it's going to bring up all of the projects by levels in your path, okay? Once you click on a level to the right, you're going to see a high-level summary of the purpose, an overview of the project, what it requires, and any tools that are available out on Toastmasters International's website for you to use. I selected engaging humor. I'm clicking on level 2. And in level 2, for know your sense of humor, I have to give, and I say I because this is a path that I'm currently working in, I have to give a 5 to 7 minute speech where I introduce humorous materials into it. I can select the topic of my choice, but whatever I do, I must include a humorous tidbit into the materials. Connect with your audience. I am supposed to take a topic that is unfamiliar with my audience and include humor as I am doing so. If I jump to level 4, I see for this core project that I have to deliver 2 to 3 minute impromptu speeches that incorporate humorous tidbits into them. Not sort of looking forward to this. What has really helped me is knowing that there is a resource out there. And that resource is giving me 12 topics that I'm supposed to give the Toastmaster of the day. And the Toastmaster of the day gets to select 2 of those 12 topics for me to give impromptu speeches on. So I know in the back of my head roughly what I potentially could be talking about. Level 5, bless my heart. I am going to have to give a 20-minute keynote address that's supposed to be entertaining. We'll see how all of that goes. So that's how this website works. It is, I find, much simpler than what you might encounter at Toastmasters International. If you are, again, sort of a visual person, there's another aid. If you scroll back up and click on Pathways, Path, and Core Competencies, you're going to see this document. And the first page of this document highlights all of the core competencies that are addressed in the path. So if there is a particular competency that you want to focus on, you can do that. I find this to be a little bit more helpful than the quiz that's at TI to help you to select the path. But again, in the subsequent pages, you have for each path a 1-page document that outlines all of the core and elective projects that are available. And if there is a project that you're really interested in, that might be the signal that that is the path for you. So again, this is one of the great resources. It's simple. It facilitates the educational process in terms of understanding what work you have to do, that I like to use and that I share with my mentees to understand what projects are available. Because as you're constructing that bridge, right, there's going to be multiple projects to get you to the endpoint. Another resource that you have is around what it is that you like, love, and illuminates your perspectives. Okay. I am going to emphasize over and over again, especially for the newer members, your topic is not what attracts the audience. It is your passion and vulnerability that connects you to your audience. So do not pick a topic that you think is going to be safe, quote unquote safe. Talk about what you like, love, and illuminates your perspectives on life. You're going to need this, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about why you need this, but you're going to need to keep an inventory of this to help you to successfully navigate pathways. The second piece is understanding your current labors of love. What is it that you're currently working on at work or in your personal life? As it's been noted, Pathways allows you to customize your journey. You get to pick the topics and the projects that you want to work on. Because again, in the old educational system, it was much more prescriptive. I cannot earn educational awards without having given a press conference or reading aloud a poem, right? But in this case, you get to pick it. And I find sometimes with the members, there's a bit of paralysis because people don't know what to do. You do not have to invent something. It doesn't have to be fancy. Truly what you're working on is going to be beneficial in helping you navigate the educational curriculum. And then finally, the resource, especially if you're a member of She Leads, She Speaks, that you should have readily available is your mentor, right? If you don't have a mentor, I encourage you to get with Debbie Woodbury, our Vice President of Education, so that she can assign you one, because your mentor is someone who has already navigated the entire educational curriculum. They can help you with speech topics. They can help you streamline the work that you're doing so that you can efficiently complete your Pathways curriculum in a way that's going to best meet or best optimize the work that you're doing on it. How does this all look? Well, let's take a look at another path. As I mentioned earlier, I'm working in the engaging humor path, but it's for a different reason than what I was using the strategic relationship path for. This time it is for personal development. It's to help work on various aspects of wellness dimensions in my life. In the engaging humor path, I'm working on my intellectual and social wellness, specifically working on speaking impromptu, as well as my humorous speaking. I have found that people look at me as a very serious person when I am not. What it is, if people are familiar with color theory, I'm a high red. I'm a person, I'm laughing at Anna. I am a person who is very goal driven. I'm all about purpose. I'm all about efficiency. And so when people start talking to me, I just naturally flow along the line of, oh, I hear a goal, I hear efficiency. Let me help you with this, right? But that's not all of who I am, right? And I've also noticed this at work because I have the title of auditor. People are a little uncomfortable about talking to the auditors. They might say something that might get them in trouble. And so I'm trying to learn how to practice small talk how to incorporate more humor as I speak, as a way to be more approachable, and for people to see me in a different light. In front of you is a snapshot of my path. I'm actually currently working in this path. Most of the path I have not completed. I have completed my level 1, which includes my icebreaker, and I have completed in level 5 my high performance leadership project, which was creating an elder care plan for my parents. Everything else is still up for grabs, right? But what I did to get to this point in my path was that I did the inventory of what it is that I like, love, and are illuminated by. And I started thinking about some of the projects that I have in front of me, which is how the elder care plan came into being. And what I did was take those items and I started mapping them back into the Pathways curriculum using that website that I showed you earlier. Many of you will know that I am a huge Korean drama lover. We were talking about it before the meeting began. At some point this year in She Speaks, you're going to hear me give a speech about Korean dramas and why you should watch them. Right? But when I do it, I'm going to do it using humor. Right? You'll notice that under level 2, you see K-dramas twice. That's because, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to craft a speech that satisfies both objectives for those projects. And I'm going to give one speech at She Speaks, and then I'm going to give the other speech at my home club, right? And sort of test out how the audience is receiving my message. I'm also going to do that again in level 5. With that keynote address, I'm going to give my reflections on the lessons learned from working on my wellness. That will be my keynote address, as well as the project where you have to reflect on your path, i.e. lessons learned, right? Again, I'm doing this efficiently. I'm not trying to write more speeches or give more impromptu speeches than I have to. But I'm able to do this because I'm sort of planning ahead. I have my inventory. And again, I'm mapping it into the Pathways curriculum. In another path, I'm working on my physical wellness. As part of that, I have been doing a food blog. As part of doing a food blog, I have come across a couple of adult beverages that I have really enjoyed, that I really think is fun. And I think, hey, wouldn't it be fun if I did a demonstration speech on how to make these cocktails? And I hope to do it again at She Speaks. And then once again at my home club. And as I do so, I'm hoping to practice visual aids and then also work on my vocal variety. That is how you bridge the gap from why you joined Toastmasters. For me, initially, it was to develop more confidence in public speaking, to pathways. Okay, this is how I'm constructing that bridge. And notice that I'm not doing something that I haven't already been working on or that I don't already want to work on, right? I like to tell my mentees, Toastmasters should not be extra work. It should be work that you're doing in conjunction with your goals and interests. And speaking of my mentees, I'm about to present their mentee plans, a couple of them. But I'm going to stop here because I told you earlier, I tend to go on, and just sort of pause. How are people feeling about this? Does this make sense? Do you have any questions at this point? You guys are making me so hungry with the food. How are we feeling?
So we're feeling pretty good, Lisa. I have a question for you.
Mhm.
It's technically a planted question, but nevertheless, it shall happen. This is for individuals who are experienced, who maybe have gone through the past program and are feeling a little tired, jaded, overwhelmed, maybe even. What are some recommendations you can give us to rekindle the flame and get back into pathways when you've gone through the whole thing before?
Talk about what you like, love, and illuminates your perspectives, right? The things I talked about 15 years ago are very different from the things that I talk about now. I've encountered new things. I have um, met people that have given me a different perspective on life, right? Just because you've done it once doesn't mean that you can't do it again. And this time is funner, bigger, more purposeful, right? And so, truly, no matter where you are in Toastmasters, talk about what you like, love, and illuminates your perspective in life. And that will help you bridge the gap from why you joined, why you're still here, to pathways. That's a great question. Any other questions or just people wanting to comment and get something out of their system before I go on to the next section? Okay. Well, like I mentioned earlier, I had a couple of mentees who were very kind to share their mentoring plans with me. I see you, Lauren. That is perfectly okay. You're just making me hungry right now. Um, um, I wanted to share their mentees plans because they're coming from a different perspective than I am. Okay. And then there are some people in the club who are entrepreneurs. And so I want to help them if you're running a business in terms of how you can leverage pathways to be a better entrepreneur, to gain a pipeline of a greater pipeline of people into your business, et cetera. Okay. So my first mentee is Dawn. A few of you heard her icebreaker speech a couple of months ago. And you learn from her icebreaker speech that she is an acupuncturist. She left the corporate world to start her business practice. She started her business practice pre-pandemic. So it's been a little sputtering, but now that things have opened up, she's really wanting to develop her practice, get more people aware of it into her business. And more specifically, what she's really interested in doing is having a community or public educational sessions around the topic of acupuncture. So when I met with Dawn, some of the things that I heard, and if you recall from her chat message earlier in the session, she really wanted to gain confidence in public speaking. And so what I told her was that we can use the level 1 and 2 projects to help her to do that. To help her creative juices to get going, I told her about an experience that I had at a district conference. Uh, there were a bunch of people sitting around at a table. We were talking about different projects that we were working on in the educational curriculum. And there was a guy who was an avid runner. And he said that for his first 10 speeches, all of his speeches related to running. His inspirational speech was to inspire people to run a marathon. And he talked about his first marathon experience. The researcher topic speech was him researching different techniques on how to run. His visual aid speech was bringing in clothing that he bought for people who are getting started into running or walking and what type of clothes to buy for it. That has always stuck with me. I thought that that was a very innovative, creative way to take what you like, love, and are illuminated by and bridge the gap into the educational curriculum. I shared that with Dawn. And Dawn was like, well, let me talk about acupuncture and things that I have encountered in my business. And so what you see in front of your screen is her having given me topics that we have mapped out to the projects and pathways, and being able to get her thinking, getting her to think naturally, confidently about talking about acupuncture with a group of people. Currently working with her on her next speech, where she wants to talk about how to gain rapport with other people, right? So her objective there is writing a speech with a purpose. At some point, she's going to give a speech about something that I'm really looking forward to, which is using self-acupuncture to relieve yourself of allergies or allergy symptoms. But you'll notice on the screen that that comes up twice, once in level 1 and once again in level 2. Again, because I'm her mentor, I have navigated the educational curriculum, I'm helping her to be efficient in the number of speeches that she is writing and having to deliver. Yeah, she's going to write one speech that satisfies 2 different projects, okay? And we're going to make sure that that speech satisfies the objectives of both of those projects. We're going to do it again in evaluation and feedback. In that project, you are supposed to give a speech, receive feedback on a speech, and then incorporate the feedback in a subsequent speech. As I tell my mentees, it makes no sense for you to write 2 different speeches. Write one speech, take the feedback from that speech, and give that speech again. So in this case, instead of her having to write 6 different speeches, we're essentially going to have her to write 4 speeches to get her through levels 1 and 2. Does that make sense? Any questions about that path or this particular mentoring plan? Again, Dawn is focusing on what it is that she likes, loves, and is illuminated by. My second mentee is Jamie. Jamie is also an entrepreneur. And as you may have noted with Dawn's plan, she's also working in team collaboration. So both, in this case, both of my mentees are working in the same path. I also told her the story about the runner, and she also was intrigued by using levels 1 and 2 to talk about the topic of her business, which is wellness, right? She's titling it Mindfulness Talks, but in levels 1 and 2, she's going to probably be focusing on different dimensions of wellness and giving speeches about them. Great, right? That is honestly how I sort of guide people on how to get through levels 1 and 2. Levels 1 and 2, because they are open topics, talk about what you like, love, and are eliminated by. We are still working through the specifics of her mentoring plan, which is why I'm allowed to be able to show you levels 3 through 5, unlike what I did with Dawn's, because we still haven't quite set goals. But one of the things that Jamie told me that was part of her goals was that she wanted to come up with an integrated wellness seminar series where she would talk about different dimensions of wellness, use it as a way to promote her practice, perhaps build relationships out in the community, so she can use them as referrals and resources for people who come into her practice. I said, great, we can use that. Why don't we take this one big project, divide it up into smaller projects that align with projects that are in the Pathways curriculum? So for example, Jamie has a couple employees where she works. Jamie is likely going to be using those employees to help her get this wellness series up and going. In level 3, you're supposed to be working with a team of 2 or 3 people to help them make a decision, to reach agreement on something. I have a pretty good feeling that that is something that is going to be happening at some point as she develops the series, right? At level 4, she's got to motivate others. She's supposed to have a team of 3 to 4 people and have them to execute a project while keeping them motivated by using the strategies in her educational curriculum. Again, I imagine that that's something that she's likely going to have to do at some point. So why not use Toastmasters to do that? She's going to have to promote this series, right? And as any seasoned Toastmasters know, storytelling is a vital skill set. So as she is promoting this series with people in the public, in her practice, perhaps with her community partners, she needs to have her elevator pitch down. She needs to have stories ready to go to tell people and why they should take part in this practice. Hence the storytelling elective in level 3. She's probably going to have to network. Maybe she needs to find a new pipeline of community partners to be able to be used as resources or references for people who come in and listen to the series. She probably wants to refine her elevator pitch, attend a few networking events. And if she does that, she can give her lessons learned. Hopefully will be better than what I had for my scenario. About what she learned from the networking piece of it. She talked about how she needed to update her website. We had to build a social media presence. She was really interested in the podcast series. And I'm like, podcast? Talk about different dimensions of wellness in that podcast, right? And you can use that either as a lead-in or perhaps as a takeaway from each of the seminars that you present. Okay. That's another way to think about how to leverage pathways. If you have a longer, more complex project, break it up into smaller projects and map them against the projects within the Pathways program. I'm going to stop there and see what questions or comments people might have. I'm excited for you, Jamie. I'm very looking forward to seeing how you think about the sequencing of the level 3 through 5 projects, because I think this will be very beneficial in helping you to achieve your goals. Any questions or comments?
I'm back again, Lisa, because for individuals who are thinking about the higher level projects, so 4, 5, and downwards, what are some resources that we have available to help those individuals who are thinking about doing those?
We're going to go back to an earlier slide. It is your current labors of love. What are you working on at work? What are you working on in your personal life? It was not, if you're a member of our club, we had a wellness campaign in the spring. I would not have thought about the decade-long project of creating an elder care plan for my parents if it had not been for that campaign. Because it was always just something, well, I'll do it later, or it just seemed so overwhelming to try to get started. And when in that campaign, it said that you could get points for creating an elder care plan. And I started looking at my engaging humor path. I was like, let me not only get points in this campaign, but also let me finish up a labor of love project that I've been wanting to do, right? It does not have to be Toastmasters related, although most people do use Toastmasters. But you also don't need to make it complicated. I think people are looking for like this epiphany. It really is your current labors of love. What are you working on at work? What are you working on in your personal life? And those are the projects that you can use. And yes, Lisette, again, you do not have to overcomplicate this. Truly, what you like, love, and have an interest in is going to be 80% of the work. Okay. Well, I'm going to stop here and see if there is someone who would like to volunteer themselves as tribute, and be willing to share with the group what your goals are. Why did you join Toastmasters? If you have a path, don't have a path, that will not stop you. But if you have a path, or tell me what your path is, and I can spend 5 to 7 minutes walking you through how to think through how to achieve your goal using pathways. And someone may need to come off mute because I'm currently presenting, or you can drop something in the chat. But if you would like to have me to do a quick, oh Lord, 5 to 7 minute session, let me know.
I can.
Who is I can?
It's me, Lauren.
Lauren, excellent. Thank you. So Lauren, I am actually going to bring up the district website. Have you selected a path yet?
I have.
What is your path?
It should be strategic relationships. Isn't that so?
I'm very familiar with this path. Okay. What are your goals? What's your goals professionally or personally?
My personal goals are just to continue to improve on my speaking style. Definitely make sure I'm incorporating vulnerability. It's still fresh, but I'm better at it a little bit. And professionally, I definitely want to use my path to help build a business I'm thinking of doing. So,
okay. I'm going to go back to your earlier remarks. You said you wanted to work on different speaking styles. Expound upon that a little bit more for me.
well, I think I have a specific style, and that's usually, funny.
Okay.
I like to joke, I like to entertain, like to be inspirational, but the vulnerability piece comes into where I'm letting people more into my world, but I don't think I do that enough. I think it's like kind of one way. It's motivational, it's inspirational, it's funny, it's entertaining. And I think I'm still trying to find that balance between kind of, be opening up a bit more to my personal world. I'm not always not necessarily comfortable, but I'm afraid either I'm going to overshare or it's going to go back to like the default style. So
yeah. So you're sort of using humor as sort of a wall. Is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's what I do best, but I'd like to try something else and not be overly concerned about, are people going to like this? Are they going to be like, Lauren, what is this? What are you doing?
Okay. The business, do you feel comfortable talking about the business that you're wanting to start?
I am.
Okay.
I think
Can you share it?
I think I can share now.
Okay.
I'm looking at the comments section. My mentors like,
don't read the comment section. Turn it off, Lauren. Turn it off.
Okay. See, I'm overthinking again.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes, I can share. I am going toward the professional speaking route.
Ooh.
And I am going to launch a business soon called Speak with Merit. And I'm going to be focusing on feedback and evaluations, kind of helping people write speeches in certain aspects. And then of course, just keynotes and just the plethora of different things. But Speak with Merit is happening, but I'm kind of tiptoeing a bit.
Mm-hmm. So what I hear from your business, you're probably going to be selling a product and a service, the product being helping people to write speeches, and a service being a public speaker, right? Giving speeches to other people. Is that correct?
That's correct. I have a couple of services, and that's the one about the writing part is called Write with Merit. So that's kind of like a side one where I'm only going to be taking a couple of people because I write so often. I don't want to do that all the time, but I definitely that.
Let me ask you this. So when you give a speech topic, what is usually the general purpose of your speech? Is it more informational? Is it entertaining?
I would call it sometimes a combination of what I call edutainment. So so I educate people, but I want to keep you engaged too. I know that's kind of poses its own issues, being behind the screen, trying to figure out how best to get people to speak or to, really be interactive. But I would say sometimes it's educational, sometimes it's informative, but I always try to find a balance of both worlds. So it's not just me being one way, because I was told you speak to people as if you're talking to a friend. So I'd really like to, kind of stick.
For your business, and I know you're still in the early stages, do you have a business plan? Do you know who your target audience is? Have you worked on like a sales plan? Have you worked on that piece of it?
I do have a business plan. I had to have a first look. I have, testimonials from people. I have surveys from people who have given feedback about what I've done, little blurbs from keynotes and other presentations I've done. So I have an outline of sorts. I haven't gotten to the price point yet because that still requires a bit of research, not underselling myself, but at the same time, giving myself enough to where I'm saying this is how much I believe this particular service costs. But I do, a solid structure to be able to move forward. But I still have a bit of work to do as far as, audience, because I was thinking about, I've given presentations before to like high school students, but I'm thinking, do I want to stick with maybe college? But for the most part, I've really spoken to people like in government agency affiliated organizations, Toastmasters, or international Toastmasters. So it's kind of a combination between here and in government, but I'd like to flesh it out a bit.
Got it. So here is what I'm thinking. Of course, you do not have to take anything that I say, but I'm imagining that perhaps your plan for strategic relationships is going to be somewhat similar to what Dawn and Jamie, I've proposed for Dawn and Jamie. I heard you earlier, you were talking about how you want to work on different speaking styles and being more vulnerable. As I mentioned earlier, levels 1 and 2 is, for me, all about talking about what you like, love, and are illuminated by. If you are a person who gives the edutainment informational speeches and you're wanting to work on different speaking styles, then I'm going to probably encourage you to not give any informational speeches in levels 1 and 2.
Okay.
Work on your persuasive speaking skills. And I said the same thing at the same time.
I saw it too.
The reason why, because I have found most Toastmasters members shy away from giving a persuasive speech. And if you are going to start a business, you have to learn to speak persuasively to other people. I would be giving nothing but persuasive speeches in levels 1 and 2. And in those speeches, I would pick topics that are controversial. And the reason why I say that, because like I experienced with my Black friend defense speech, you having to articulate your real thoughts, not to say that you can't use humor, but articulating your real thoughts about how you feel about things is going to serve you well later on, whether it's just as a professional public speaker or in your interactions with people in your business. I would focus on giving persuasive, controversial topics to help you articulate your real thoughts without the tool of humor.
Okay. Writing it down.
Like you're going to have this cross-cultural understanding, right? Just knowing a little bit that I know of you, I would not be focusing on being a tall woman, right? Don't pick the easy thing. Don't pick being the Marvel fan, that type of stuff. Pick something else. Go through all of the identities and pick a stereotype that you would not normally speak about or share with other people. Okay. For levels 3 through 5, I think this is prime for your business. It sounds like you're still in the infancy of developing a few things. It could be in level 5 for your electives. Maybe you might want to select a high performance leadership project. Maybe you might want to work with a few people to help. Amen, Tony. Amen. The Marvel versus DC. On a high performance leadership project, maybe you might want to work with people to help you identify your target audience. When I asked you the question about your business plan, you didn't really give me a business plan. You gave me marketing materials. It may be that you might want to do an HPL on helping you to actually craft a business plan with all of the key components in it from people who are entrepreneurs and have experience having done that. It's very easy for you to select this prepare to speak professionally, but truly I would shy away from that. I would focus on developing your business and the business plans behind it, right? Developing your sales plan, developing your target audience, figuring out your price points, figuring out your unique selling proposition, which brings us back to level 3 and that making connections through networking, right? You're going to need to come up with a unique selling proposition for why your business is different from all of the 18 million other professional speaking businesses that are out there. And that's probably going to take you a few weeks, if not months, to do. At least do it well. And I would spend the time doing it and using this project to begin networking, sort of similar to what Jamie has. Jamie says that she has a network of community partners. You're probably going to want to find your own network of community partners to help you in getting this business off the ground and being well resourced when different things come up along the way. I would also pick projects that may not seem typical for you, right? And again, this is based upon the little that I know about you. Preparing for an interview. Perhaps there is a prospective client and you may want to have somebody to practice with you in interviewing, with the interviewing not necessarily being getting a brick and mortar type job, right? It's being able to sell to a potential client why they should come to you for help. It could be connecting with visual aids, developing like your brand logo. Perhaps it is because, and I hesitate because in level 4, your public relations strategy, all of the marketing materials that you were talking about, that's probably going to come here as part of your business plan, right? So if you're wanting to be vulnerable and you are also working on this business, you're going to have to do things outside of the norm. And I'm looking through level 3 and I'm trying to figure out like what's outside of the norm for what I believe for Lauren. Interviewing sounds like something that's outside of the norm. Perhaps you might want to do a journaling project, right? Where you are focusing your journaling just on your experiences in building the business. That is a prime opportunity for you to give a speech about your experiences journaling and being vulnerable, right? So step outside of the norm as you're going through this. But in summary, I would use level 1 and 2 to practice persuasive speaking on controversial speech topics. Again, I'm not saying that you can't use humor, but that will be an avenue for you to not use humor as a wall. I would use levels 3 to 5 to help you build up your business in terms of building a business plan, building up a pipeline, the resources that you're going to need to be able to support you. Take those smaller tasks, make them palatable for the projects that are there. And if you pick a project, I would not gravitate towards what is easy. I would gravitate towards what is different to help you get the most out of this particular path.
Thank you.
What you thinking? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling like it's a lot of information, but a lot of solid information based on the levels. Usually I do just kind of pick whatever I want, and believe it or not, as long as I've been in Toastmasters, I've never done an HPL. Not once. Every time I saw it, I know. Don't judge me. I've been in Toastmasters 6 years, and every time I saw HPL, I would go to the left, I would go to the right, I would take the road that I felt like traveling, not Robert Frost. So no, I have not done an HPL. I refused. I would do professional, the professional speaking ones. What my last path was, engaging humor. So I would just do whatever I really wanted. But if it was like a blog or anything that requires some extra steps, I'm like, I'll speak. I already know I can do this. Let's go. I probably do.
The path of least resistance. I hear you. And I don't think you're alone in that. You're not the special snowflake in this instance. There are a lot of Toastmasters, especially if you're a part of the old educational curriculum, because it was so prescriptive, it was so check the box. You always selected the path of least resistance. That's why people, they go into some of the projects and they're not really doing them, like I did with networking. That was my whole reason why I was not successful in that, because I did not want to put forth the work. I just wanted to do the path of least resistance, find that networking session and talk, and it didn't happen for me. And so that's what I would challenge myself with this path.
Definitely, and I do want to again take a different path, because I do want to build this business and all that I see that it could be, and start taking on all those things. But I can't do that if I'm just like, I'm gonna dance around it. I'll my most of what I did for Toastmasters, of course, surrounded around competition.
Yeah.
I did competition for so long, so I would just kind of like plop and apply, or I would come up with something, a speech on the fly. People would be like, "Oh, that's fantastic," but I wasn't challenging myself, so I'm a terrible man.
Outside of the box. Be vulnerable. That's going to be the best way, is by doing things that you are not used to doing and actually doing what is being asked of you in the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
You're welcome. Thank you. You did all the work. Some great tips. But I forgot to mention, I did leverage Inna so much when it came to even getting to what I have as far as a working business plan. So if you don't, you should use your mentor, which is why we have them, because I never had one prior to this club. So
if you have a mentor and you are not in regular interaction with her, it's to your detriment. It really is, because again, your mentor knows people. Your mentor knows the educational curriculum. They probably have been involved in district level activities. You utilize your mentor. You do not have to do this all by yourself. And that's one of the things that I've learned from doing HPLs. It's a lot easier to get things done when you can have people who can brainstorm for you. I'm going to ask Anna, because I know we're getting towards the bottom of the hour. And I saw that Anna wanted me to work with Anne Marie. Do we have time to do that? My next slide is going to be the closing slide.
Gotcha.
But if there is interest by the group, I'm willing to do a second person. But if we don't have enough time, we can go to closing.
We shall do it. We shall do one more person. I think it's a good perspective for people to see someone who's really experienced, someone who's kind of in the middle level. So we are doing it. Anne Marie, come forth and let us talk about your plan.
What's up, Anne Marie?
I thought you all were only doing one, and I saw that I came in after Lauren, so I figure I'll just.
You have known me too long that you should have known that this.
I should have never volunteered myself, right? Oh, I should have always stick to Navy. Why don't I always stick to Navy? Never again volunteer yourself. All right. Well, since I'm up, let's go ahead and do it.
Okay.
Now, Lisa. So I'm working in my second path, which is presentation mastery. I'm almost finished with that one. I have engaging humor, and I also have leadership development. But one of the ones that I'm most looking at right now is to do the Distinguished Toastmaster project.
Okay. So
I'm not sure which one you think you would want to look at.
Well, let's find out what your goals are. What are you trying to achieve?
That's a really, really good question. Actually, my goal is, and especially working with my DTM, is to inspire other members to, and I'm keeping this local within Toastmasters, to take on leadership roles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that important for you?
It's important for me because in serving on the district level, I see that we don't have the volunteers that we need. Okay. And I would like to help to build that pool of volunteers so that district leadership is always there to fill the role.
Okay. So I'm going to start with leadership development because, I'm challenging myself because I'm not very familiar with this path. And two, just based upon what you told me, that seems like a better option because I know engaging humor and I know presentation mastery, and this might be a better alignment with your goals. Okay. Who have you talked to about this problem? What are other people's thoughts on it?
So I've talked to other individuals that were previous leaders, and other folks' thoughts are, why are individuals not volunteering? And so those are the thoughts. And so I'm working towards the why they're not volunteering.
Do you have thoughts yourself as to why people are not volunteering for district roles?
Yes, I do.
Would you like to share one of them? Try not to put you on the spot too much.
One of the thought is that sometimes they don't understand the roles and responsibility.
Meaning they don't know about the opportunities are there, or they're
that's another
once they get into it, there's this sort of like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it meant doing all of this.
Right. That's like two parts to it. One, some don't know that the roles are there, or that sometimes based on their goals that they need to do some of those roles. And then is, what does that role entails?
Got it.
How do I do it? It's looking too hard, so that's the aspect of it.
So I'm turning my head because I'm looking at the projects, because again, I'm not overly familiar with the leadership development path. This is what I am thinking, just the little that I know and just having served as a district officer myself. Much like Lauren, I too always shied away from high performance leadership projects until I got into pathways. And people who have served on my HPL committees, and there's some of them that's on this call today or on this presentation today, knows how much I love them, because the value that I got out of those sessions was that the brainstorming, the idea generation, things I had not thought about before, they had brought up for me. For example, when I was working on that DEI project for work, I never thought about branding it. I was just all like, I just want to get people together and have them to host events. But the fact that I was able to spend a weekend and come up with the tagline of allyship in action, and that allyship speaks louder than words, I'm still surprised after a year they're still using it. But I just never would have gotten that idea if it had not been for people helping me to brainstorm this. And I believe what I would suggest for you, which is what I've suggested for another mentee, but we haven't quite fleshed it out, I would work backwards, right? I think you need a high performance leadership project, and that would be level 5.
Mm-hmm.
High performance leadership. And you need to assemble a group of people who have worked in district leadership. You need to tell them your problem and tell them your vision, and have them to help you brainstorm what potential activities that you can do to achieve your goal. Your team of people, especially if there are people who were around, like 10 years ago, maybe involved in it now, they can give you a range of perspectives in terms of what has worked, what is not currently working. And that is going to also give you a sort of a project plan, i.e. a list of activities that you, them, want to leverage other people to execute as a way to get more people involved in district leadership. I asked you why they were not volunteering or if you had any ideas, because you already have a couple of ideas. Other people who've served in district leadership, they're going to have ideas as well, right? And from those ideas, you can generate the best of them and then start working backwards in your project, right? Once you've done the high performance leadership, this managed successful events, which is not there, maybe you might want to have, and again, I'm just throwing ideas out there, a district-wide event that is heavily promoted to educate people on potential opportunities out there and how they can leverage pathways to not only complete that opportunity, but help them meet their professional, personal goals, right? If you start going back into level 4, perhaps for one of these projects, you might want to assemble your own little team of people for your own personal pet project, right? Maybe there were 10 ideas and there was one that you really loved and that you want to work on yourself. Work with a team of people to develop that vision and execute the project. When you start getting into these electives, maybe you might want to have a podcast series of district leadership, maybe not just in 36, but perhaps in 27, 18, maybe people on the international board, to talk about the value of serving as a leader in Toastmasters. Maybe there's something on the district website. Maybe people might want to run a blog where they're giving their own testimonies about how serving as a leader has benefited them as a way to promote, entice, attract people to district opportunities. You get down into level 3, right? From those 10 brainstorming ideas, maybe there's another idea that you might want to take on or somebody else can take on, and you're helping them to plan and implement that project, right? These electives, they can be about you or having you giving your personal experiences of how serving as a district leader has benefited you, right? As part of that marketing and promotion materials that are at hand. Levels 2 and 1 could be about your experiences, right? Mentoring people, understanding your leadership style from having been a part of this high performance leadership project. Just even talking about the project itself, because it might be that you start with an HPL, maybe you have 4 or 5 people, but then maybe that grows as you start networking and other people become more aware and they want to get involved in the project, right? I would work backwards. Start with level 5 with that high performance leadership project. Have a team of people to generate ideas for you. And from that idea, start coming up with a project plan and gaining the resources, the help that you need to execute that project plan. How do you feel about that? How does that sound?
Great. I must tell you that I think we're actually on the same wavelength because I'm starting backwards with the DTM project. And from the DTM project, I'm rolling it. I had the thought of rolling it into my level 4 and 5 because those are the 2 levels that I have to specifically finish for the leadership development. And I've already started creating some ideas and having a title for what that project will be. And so your ideas that you just throw out just fall right in line with my
It also helps with your DTM project. Again,
yes.
If you have people that help you brainstorm the ideas, there might be a third project, right? And that third project can be your DTM project.
Right.
So that's what I would recommend. I would work backwards.
Yep. And great ideas. Great job. Thank you.
You sound so relieved and enthusiastic.
It's like, okay, we're on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
I understand what she's talking about. And, developing the outline and looking at once you develop the outline, you're right. You can have more than one project with that outline.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm noticing once I started that is like, instead of making it such a big pie, cut it down into small pieces and get those individuals to help.
And I'm glad that you volunteered as tribute because there are a lot of people that use Toastmaster activities to complete pathways projects, right? And again, you're giving a different perspective of everyone because there are some people who are really passionate about Toastmasters, especially at the district level. You don't have to be an area director or a division director to use Toastmasters for your pathways projects.
Right.
So thank you. I appreciate it. I'm sure everyone else appreciates it as well. Any questions from anyone in the group from having gone through these 2 exercises? So then I am going to close out. As I mentioned, you should never give an informational speech without a call to action, right? It actually applies in all speeches, persuasive, inspirational, but you should have a call to action, and this is my call to action to you, right? As in life, as is in Toastmasters, you're not going to get anywhere in life doing anything if you don't have a purpose. State your purpose, state your goal, because pathways is not a check the box activity. Okay. Once you have your goal, start noticing what your likes, loves, and illuminations are and what your current labors of love are, right? We've heard it through Dawn and Jamie from the entrepreneurship side. We've heard about labors of love with Lauren and with Anne Marie, okay? There's nothing that is off limits. I have yet, Anna says that she has, but I have yet not encountered a single scenario where somebody had a goal and it couldn't be used through pathways. I'm willing to have someone test that limit with me, but I have not seen it yet. So whatever you want to work on is the right thing to work on for pathways, okay? Once you do that, once you have your inventory, you begin to map it out to your pathways and projects. Don't think about this as being like a tedious affair. All you really need to do is think about it like mixing, matching your wardrobe or perhaps your furniture in your home. Make it a fun activity, okay? And then once you have that down, or even as part of the project, as I was emphasizing with Anne Marie, bring in your mentor. You don't have to do this alone, ladies. And like I said, your mentor or other mentors in the club, they can help you streamline your work in the most efficient way possible to help you to achieve your goal. And once you have it mapped out, start developing a timeline and a mentoring plan. The reason why I'm bringing this up, because Anna and I are co-chairing the mentoring program this year. And we would like to see written mentoring plans from everyone. We sort of have a date in mind for when we would like to see those mentoring plans. But we would like to see them. And again, it doesn't have to be anything as extensive as what Anne Marie is trying to do with this project. It can be something that's tighter and more constrained, like what is happening with Dawn, where she's trying to complete 2 levels in 1 year. For you, it could be that you just want to complete 1 level, and that's perfectly fine. There's not an award that you're going to get for completing 18 million educational awards or projects in 1 year, okay? Everything is self-paced. It should be all about you leveling up, thank you, Terry, and doing something that's going to be productive in helping you to achieve your goals. Okay. So with that, I say thank you. One of the things that you may not, you may have picked up on it, you may not have picked up on it, but this entire presentation was impromptu. And the reason why I'm able to do this is because I spent last year working on impromptu speaking in the Engaging Humor path. I had an experience at work in February where out of the blue, I was called to a finance leadership meeting. I didn't want to go. I was dragging my feet. I made my supervisor be the one to come up with the presentations. But lo and behold, 2 days before the meeting, I was told that I was going to be the one giving the presentation. I did not craft the materials for that presentation, and they were all about 10 to 15 minutes each. Yes, there was panic, but it was sort of controlled panic because I had practiced impromptu speaking in my home club monthly. And when I got to that day, I realized, oh, this isn't a small meeting. There was close to 100 people at this meeting. There was this stage, there was this huge screen behind me. I had the clicker, and I was like, holy cow, I have not prepared sufficiently for this presentation, just like I did not prepare sufficiently for this presentation because it was literally done in the last 48 hours, like the last 48 hours in February. But that gave probably one of the more memorable presentations across that 2-day meeting. I spoke on both days. I incorporated humor. There were people smiling, people that were probably a little shocked because they probably hadn't seen me in that way. My boss too was a little nervous because he's like, well, we'll see how it's received after the presentation. But I would not have had the confidence to do that if I had not made it a point to stretch myself in that engaging humor path. And that's the benefit of utilizing Toastmasters, right, for your professional and personal goals, because when the time comes, you're going to be prepared. You're going to feel confident. All of that angst that you guys were talking about at the beginning as to why you joined Toastmasters, it's going to subside, right? And so I encourage you to work with your mentors, start building the bridges from why you joined to pathways. And if you do so, I promise you a year from now, you're going to see a huge change in yourself.